Discover 6 sinister and spine-chilling terrifying tales revealed under the haunting cover of night. Sarah had never thought she'd come to fear the place she called home. The streets of Crestwood were no longer inviting, they were treacherous, full of whispers. The smell of burnt coffee wafted through the air, stinging her nostrils like a warning. As she donned her scrubs and prepared for another restless night shift, uncertainty gnawed at her spine. Outside, the once vibrant suburb revealed its crumbling sidewalks and flickering streetlights, casting long, ominous shadows that danced in the corners of her tired eyes. Families had retreated into their homes, leaving the community to wither. Chilling tales of the neighbor, a masked figure said to prey on the vulnerable, spun through the air like an unwelcome fog. Pushing her fears aside, Sarah climbed into her car, the sound of the engine punctuating the stillness. The streets, empty and unsettling, twisted around agonizing corners, and for the first time, anxiety clawed at her chest. Her heart raced as she passed peeling posters on telephone poles, warning of recent disappearances. Could the beast hiding in the shadows have already crept into her life? She shook her head, trying to dismiss the nasty thoughts. Those noises in her house, the lost keys, the heavy thud echoing at night, could they mean anything? Just nerves from too many late hours. Yet the unease settled deeper. The days turned into weeks, each one heavier than the last. She began to notice how the children would walk faster past the local school, eyeing the principal with unease. He had always been the beacon of hope, yet unsettling rumors swirled about him, a man revered for his dedication now cloaked in suspicion. Sarah felt the tug of loyalty to her mother, but her protective instincts flared. Denial crept in, reinforced by her neighbor's whispers. There was a line, a breaking point, and she felt herself inching closer to it. Then that cold night arrived. Sarah was driving home, her routine disturbed by the shadow of dread. The streets morphed, familiar paths transforming into a terrifying maze. Breath quickening, she turned a corner, and there he was. The neighbor emerged from the dark, gliding silently as if he were part of the night itself. Her pulse thundered as reality crashed over her. She had ignored the signs. The threat was not just a figure of folklore, he was here, among them. In a blind panic, she fled down an unfamiliar street, the biting air slicing at her lungs. Fear paralyzed her instincts, and every echo behind her felt like a grave warning. She raced through the dimly lit alley, heart pounding like a hammer. And then, as shadows enveloped her, a chilling scream cut through the midnight air, freezing Sarah in her tracks. Panic surged through her as her mind spiraled. Who could she trust? The authorities sworn to protect? Or had she been living side by side with the real monster? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every fiber of her being, she turned to face her pursuer. And that moment hung like thick, suffocating fog, the night thick with unspoken fears. Shadows danced around her like mocking phantoms, leaving her pulse racing with questions. Would she confront her nightmare, or vanish into a whisper lost to darkness? Time stretched, uncertain and cruel. The choice loomed ahead, both tantalizing and terrifying, inviting her deeper into the abyss of Crestwood's darkest secrets. Sarah stood frozen, breath hitching in her throat. The figure inched closer, his features obscured by the dripping darkness and the mask that seemed to swallow all light. She felt the prickling sweat on her skin, the icy grip of terror closing around her heart. A whisper in the back of her mind told her to run, but her legs felt heavy, rooted to the ground. Footsteps echoed behind her, sharp and invasive. It was as if the night itself had come alive, urging the shadows to close in. She focused on her surroundings, a dumpster, a flickering lamp, the slick alley wall objects that suddenly felt menacing. With pulse racing, she summoned her strength and took a step back. The figure halted, tilting his head as if savoring her fear. Sarah could see the glimmer of something metallic in his hand. Her instincts screamed. This was not just a game, this was a hunt. No longer could she play the victim, she had to fight. Without turning her back, she bolted, heart pounding in her ears like thunder. The path ahead stretched endlessly, lined with ominous buildings that loomed like towering sentinels. She dashed past alleyways and shadowed doorways, the sensation of being pursued clawing at her spine. Behind her, the footsteps grew louder, faster. Cold night air burned her lungs as she pushed herself harder, adrenaline coursing through her veins like fire. Every glance over her shoulder felt like an invitation to despair. He was gaining on her. Then she spotted it, a narrow street, barely illuminated, leading to an old diner that had seen better days. The neon sign buzzed with a faded glow, casting eerie shapes across the pavement. She darted toward it, praying for sanctuary. As she rushed through the door, the bell jingled above, a sound too cheerful for her rattled mind. The old diner smelled of stale coffee and grease. A few patrons looked up, startled by her frantic entrance. "Are you okay?" one of them asked, wide-eyed. She didn't answer. Instead, she scanned the room, desperate for safety. No one seemed to recognize her terror, engrossed in their late-night meals. She stumbled to the counter, gripping the edge as if it was the only anchor in a storm, eyes darting back to the door. "Call 911, she gasped, desperation coating her words. The waitress gave her a puzzled look. "What's wrong, honey?" Before she could answer, the door swung open. The figure stood there, imposing and unnerving, the mask glinting. Time froze as every face in the diner turned to see the monster. "Sarah," his voice was gravelly, resonating with dark certainty. "You can't hide from me," the patrons gasped, some recoiling in fear, while others sat, frozen in shock. Sarah's stomach dropped as reality crashed back. They were about to witness the most harrowing moment of her life, a crime lurking on the cusp of revelation. "Get away from her!" A voice shouted suddenly. It was a man from the back of the diner, rising to confront the silent threat. But would he be enough to factor in her salvation? She felt the hope flicker like the dying neon sign outside. Was it too late? As the clash between darkness and desperation unfolded, the tension escalated, hearts racing in unison. It could be her only chance to expose the true form of the nightmare that had crept through Crestwood. And then, suddenly, all lights went out. The diner plunged into darkness. Panic engulfed the air as shouts erupted, chairs scraped against the linoleum with frantic uncertainty. Sarah, in that instant, understood. In the profound darkness, anything could happen. Was the masked figure still near her? Had he stepped into the shadows to finish what he had started? She could not see, not hear, not understand the chaos around her, only the pounding of her heart filling the void. As silence stretched out, she felt a hand brush against her arm, a fleeting moment of contact, sharp with fear. "Who's there?" she whispered, frozen between flight or fight. But the silence answered, leaving her breathless and teetering on the edge of something far worse than she'd ever imagined. What would happen next? The darkness had decided to reveal its secrets, and not all of them would return as whispers. She felt the weight of the world in that darkness. Every muffled breath around her heightened her anxiety. Was it just her, or was something crawling closer? She wished she could scream, but the fear had lodged itself in her throat. "Sarah!" A voice rang out, cutting through the shroud of black. It was the man from the back of the diner, she could tell by the urgency lacing his tone. "Get behind me!" Before she could respond, a crashing sound erupted from the door. The figure found his way inside, the scraping of metal against the floor reverberating like thunder. It was here. A collective gasp filled the diner, followed by murmurs and shuffling as people scrambled for the exits. But the heavy footfalls of the masked man drowned out their attempts at escape. Sarah's heart raced with disbelief at the chaos unfolding in the dark. "Stay calm. We need to stick together," the man shouted, but his voice trembled, betraying his own fear. In that heartbeat, Sarah noticed she was still standing at the counter, alone as shadows writhed around her. Panic surged. She stepped tentatively away from the counter, moving to the right, guided only by her instincts. Her fingers brushed against something cold and metallic, an old knife left by the diner's last customer. She gripped it tightly, her knuckles whitening. The darkness shifted and swirled, an unseen presence looming ominously. "Where are you?" The gravelly voice echoed, a promise of horror that slithered into her ears. "Over here," shouted the man, trying to draw the figure away from Sarah. She could hear the scraping sound of chairs being flung aside, dishes clattering violently to the ground, echoing chaos into the wild night. She had to move. But as she turned to dash for the door, another hand grasped her wrist in a tight hold. Adrenaline ignited within her, and she instinctively swung the knife, the blade slicing through the shadows. It found purchase, a gasp escaping whoever was holding her wrist. "Not me, Sarah," the man yelled, instantly clarifying that he wasn't the enemy. "It's me, Michael." "Michael?" The realization crashed into her like a wave, and she felt a flicker of hope. In the void, boundaries blurred, yet she could trust him, right? "Here." He pulled her closer. "Follow me." They moved together, a coiled energy thrumming between them as they navigated the dark space. But the masked figure was relentless. The thump of his footsteps chased them, an ominous drumbeat promising horror. The door cracked open, a sliver of moonlight spilling in. No way would they see that light if they didn't make it soon. They needed to. A force struck, sending Michael crashing into the wall. He groaned, and Sarah felt her heart contort with desperation. "Sarah!" He cried out just as the figure lunged towards him, obscured yet menacing. Amid the chaos, everything slowed. Her thoughts raced. She could either abandon him or risk everything. "Get away!" she yelled, launching herself towards the figure with the knife raised high. The clatter of the blade hitting the floor drowned her words. She was terrified, but a spark flared inside her. She was done being a victim. But then the diner was enveloped in silence again, the faint illumination of hope flickering and fading like the dying neon sign outside. Michael was struggling, she could hear his low whimpers beneath the terror. "Sarah!" he gasped. He was losing. With the knife clutched in her grasp, she felt fear morph into something primal, a desperate rage. She lunged forward, but the masked figure turned to her, terrifyingly calm. In the darkness, his eyes glimmered with an unsettling hunger. "Come find me," he said, voice dripping with malice as he dropped Michael, who crumpled to the ground. And just like that, he was gone, disappearing into the shadows. The silence was deafening as Sarah stood trembling, the smell of fear mingling with the stale air, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm in her chest. Where had he gone? "Michael!" she called, kneeling beside him. Was he hurt? But he wasn't there. Her hands met empty space. Fear was a palpable force, and the diner's walls felt as if they were closing in. The only sound left was her own shaky breath and the soft hum of the dying neon. Had he really vanished? Out in the darkness, something awaited, an unseen menace that beckoned her deeper into the night. Anxiety gripped her tighter than ever, releasing fragmented promises of terror. What was lurking just beyond her reach? The air grew still, heavy with unspoken horrors poised to be unleashed. And then, she heard it, a chilling laugh echoing from the shadows. Let the games truly begin. The diner was suffocating in its stillness, each flickering light bulb an enemy, exposing the very shadows they all feared. Sarah's heartbeat echoed in her ears, a frantic tattoo that pulsed in time with the invisible threat that loomed just beyond her vision. "Michael!" she shouted again, her voice oscillating between desperation and dread. No answer came. The air thickened with a clinging anxiety, tightening around her throat. Each second stretched painfully, filled with the silent anticipation of the terror that skulked in the dark. Cautiously, she sniffed the air, searching for any hint of familiarity, any trace of hope. But only the stench of stale fries and overwhelming fear lingered. She stumbled toward the counter, her hands sliding along the cold, sticky surface, wishing to find something solid to cling to, but nothing offered comfort. The noise from the kitchen suddenly erupted, a loud crash, followed by the metallic screech of pots tumbling to the floor. Sarah flinched, heart racing as her palms grew clammy around the knife. The terror of the unseen gave way to the burst of an all-consuming rage. "I want to be scared," she whispered fiercely, almost to convince herself. In the dim light, she steadied herself, peering into the kitchen where shadows danced in retreat, and an unsettling quiet settled like a thick blanket. Swallowing hard, she steeled herself and moved cautiously towards the source of the sound. With each step, memories surged, locks clicking shut, the feeling of small-town security, of safety. But that was gone now, and all that remained was her fragile courage, flickering like a candle in a storm. "Michael!" She called again, her voice wavering, barely strong enough to break the silence. No response. Only the sound of her breath and the faint whisper of someone or something moving. Then she saw it, a shadow sweeping across the kitchen floor. Sarah's heart dropped. It was back. "Come out," the words escaped her lips barely above a whisper, a shaky challenge. Silence hung heavy like smoke, and she gripped the knife tighter, feeling the cold metal bite her skin. Suddenly, a swift movement caught her eye. In the kitchen's far corner, a dark figure loomed, a flash of white obscured in the blackness. Her breath froze in her throat. "Michael, is that you?" The figure shifted, and she could only glimpse a fraction of a face, one wide eye staring into the abyss. Hope flickered briefly before the shadow melted deeper into the dark. The laughter returned, echoing off the diner's walls. It was low and mocking, a sinister melody that throbbed against her skin. "Find your friend if you dare," it echoed. Terror gripped her insides, but a fire ignited within. "I will find you," she screamed, charging forward, not caring about the danger, driven by a fierce determination. Her foot slipped, kicking something metallic, a spatula, it seemed. She caught herself, her heart racing as the figure shifted again. "Come out," she shouted, but the challenges only invited more darkness, deepening the fear. Her pulse hammered violently as she rounded the corner, the kitchen unusually cold. Then silence. "Michael?" she pleaded, the dread washing over her in waves that threatened to pull her under. She turned, every corner of the diner a possible hiding spot for the masked presence. But then she heard it, the softest shushing sound, almost like a breath, to her left. Sarah spun around, knife raised, ready to fight whatever came for her. The chill crept into her bones, and the shadows but inched closer, pressing against her. And then, behind her, she heard a faint whisper, "Help me." With every ounce of her being, she turned towards it, but nothing. Just shadows. The voice echoed again, this time stronger, "Help me." But who was it? A trick? Or was it Michael? Just as she took a step, the door to the diner swung wide open, light flooding in, washing over her like salvation. Before she could breathe relief, a figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, blocking the light. "Welcome back," it hissed, and the door shut with a deafening bang. Who was this new menace? What had taken over the diner? Sarah's heart dropped as she realized she was no longer alone. And deep in the shadows, she felt the weight of eyes watching her back, ready to unveil every hidden horror. What game was being played now? What choices would she have to make to escape the grip of this nightmarish reality? The figure in the doorway shifted, a grotesque mockery of a smile spreading across its face. Light glinted off something sharp in its hand. Sarah's breath came in short gasps, her heartbeat a frantic drum against her ribcage. She took a step back, desperate to absorb the distortion of the intrusion. "What do you want?" She managed to croak, words fighting their way through her throat. The figure leaned forward, the light barely illuminating a pale, gaunt face. "Your friend is lost, isn't he? But you won't find him here. Where is Michael?" She demanded, adrenaline clawing at her voice, desperation mixing with fear. "Somewhere," it replied, its voice a sickly sweet sing-song that turned her stomach. "But all good little girls should stay where it's safe, in the shadows." As it spoke, shadows writhed along the walls behind it, twisting and stretching, casting grotesque shapes that made her skin crawl. Sarah felt that horrible suffocating sensation creep back into her. "Get away from me!" she shouted, trying to sound brave but knowing her voice trembled. Brave words, but words can't shield you from the truth. The figure stepped closer, and Sarah fought the urge to run. The horrors she had seen danced behind her eyes, each one more nightmarish than the last. "The diner knows your fears. It feeds on them." The lights flickered again, plunging her into momentary darkness. Panic surged through Sarah. She clutched the knife with a white-knuckled grip, feeling the weight of her own terror binding her. The figure's laughter echoed, a harsh and twisted sound that rattled her bones. "Playtime is just beginning. Join us, or search for him in the dark." "What will it be, Sarah?" A shiver ran up her spine. Questions raced through her mind like weeds, choking her thoughts. Should she confront this creature, or run and risk losing Michael forever? "Michael!" She cried one last time, her voice breaking, the name like a beacon through the gloom. For a moment, everything was silent. The shadows around the figure stilled, and she thought she saw a flicker of something. Fear? Rage? It was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by that chilling grin. Such determination. "You'll need it." The figure gestured to the back of the diner where the kitchen door swung ajar, revealing a sliver of darkness as cold as ice. "But make your choice wisely. You know what lurks in the shadows." The dim lights throbbed with an ominous rhythm, and for the briefest moment, Sarah felt the air shift, a warning whisper brushing like icy fingers across her arm. The diner felt alive, each table and chair an observer of her fate. "Are you part of the game?" she whispered, as she glanced toward the kitchen, heart racing, decision weighing heavily in the pit of her stomach. "You'll find out soon enough," the figure replied, its shape blurring, merging seamlessly with the shadows around it. Just like that, it vanished, leaving Sarah alone and the silence amplifying her terror. She gritted her teeth, considering her options. The faint echo of Michael's voice reverberated in her mind. "Help me." With a sudden resolve, she took a step toward the kitchen door, knowing full well that every sound could lead to her undoing. What waited for her there? What horrors had overtaken the place she once called safe? A ghastly chill enveloped her as she stepped into the dim corridor, the promise of something dreadful edging closer with each breath. Sarah squared her shoulders, heart pounding, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching from every corner. And with that, she plunged headfirst into the darkness. But was it too late? What would she find in the depths of the diner? Would the nightmares consume her before she could save Michael? The kitchen door creaked ominously as Sarah nudged it open, the sliver of darkness widening to engulf her. The air inside was thick with a rancid smell, like decaying food and something metallic. Gritting her teeth, she stepped inside, the cold linoleum cold against her bare feet. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but she couldn't abandon Michael. She had to find him. Each step felt heavy, as if the shadows themselves were trying to drag her back. The kitchen's light flickered erratically, casting fast-moving shadows against the peeling walls. She could see shapes in the corners, lurking, shifting out of sight. Was it just her imagination? She couldn't tell. "Michael," she whispered, her voice barely a sound. The silence seemed to vibrate with tension, piercing right through her. The last time she'd heard his voice, it had been filled with fear. "Please answer me. A soft rustle echoed from the far end of the kitchen. Sarah froze, her heart racing. She strained to listen, waiting for any sign that Michael was near. Instead, she heard something else, a low, rhythmic sound, like soft scratching. It crept closer, a shivering energy rising from the pit of her stomach. Swallowing hard, she crept toward the source of the noise. There, in the corner, she spotted a figure crouched low, obscured by a flickering light. Adrenaline shot through her. Was it Michael? Or something else entirely? Michael? She called, her voice wavering. The figure snarled, turning a ghastly face toward her empty eyes, a gaping mouth filled with jagged teeth. It wasn't him. It was something twisted, a parody of him, hunched and feral. Panic surged as the figure lunged. She stumbled back, narrowly avoiding its grasp. Heart pounding, Sarah snatched the knife from her pocket, its cold metal a fragile reassurance. She raised it defensively, hands trembling. "Get away from me!" she shouted, each word echoing back off the metallic walls. The creature chuckled, a sound that twisted her insides. "Oh, sweet Sarah. It's too late for that." The voice was an eerie mimicry of Michael's, taunting her, teasing her. "You'll find you don't know who to trust." A shiver ran down her spine, the blood draining from her face. From the shadows behind the kitchen equipment, more figures emerged, their forms a nightmare come to life. She was surrounded, the light from above revealing faces twisted in agony, a testament of despair. Each one seemed to stretch toward her, hands outstretched, eyes brimming with sorrow. "Michael!" She screamed again, desperate, the sound ripping through her throat. The nightmares were closing in, the shadowy figures whispering in a hiss. Join us in a rush of reckless instinct, Sarah dashed through the forest of protruding knives and broken metal, searching for a way out. Cold fingers brushed against her skin, the horror pressed close, suffocating her. "Playtime is just beginning." The first figure cried, its laughter echoing around her. She slammed into a swinging door, bursting free into a side hallway lined with old photographs of patrons long gone. The faces were cracked, eyes hollow, living reminders of the nightmares that consumed them. Breathing ragged, she pressed forward, following the echo of her own heartbeat. But what lay ahead? The fear was palpable, growing sharper. Would she discover Michael? Or fall deeper into the trap set by the thing that haunted her? And in the darkness behind her, the mocking laughter faded, replaced by another echo, layered beneath it. "It's not just the shadows you need to fear." Where would the echoes lead her next? The hallway stretched before Sarah like a mouth gaping wide, the flickering overhead light warming the edges but casting long, dark shadows. Each step she took echoed, a dull thud that felt too loud for the oppressive silence. She was hyper-aware, nerves on edge, anticipating the dark to reach out and pull her back into the shadows. "Michael!" she pleaded again, voice shaking but firm. Her instincts screamed that he was close, maybe just around the next corner or worse, trapped in that cursed kitchen with those wretched figures. The thought clawed at her, and she shoved it aside, focusing on the flickering light at the end of the hallway. As she approached, the air grew thick, cold and damp, wrapping around her like a vice. The portraits lining the walls seemed to twist, their gazes trailing her every move. Those soulless eyes appeared to whisper secrets of despair. Gritting her teeth, she pressed forward, gripping the knife tighter, its surface slick with sweat. A sudden noise, a soft thud, echoed from the room beyond. Sarah halted, breath hitching as adrenaline coursed through her. She stepped closer to the doorway, her heart racing again. Inside, the room was dark, the curtains drawn tightly as if barricading something inside. Shadows loomed, massive and fluid, threatening to spill into the hallway. She ducked to peer inside, holding her breath, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. "Michael?" Her voice cracked. A rustle, a tired groan, almost familiar. She leaned in, determination flaring. Is that you? The shadows darted, shifting uneasily as if rearranging themselves. Then, the unmistakable voice cut through the dark, weak and hoarse. Sarah, help me. Relief surged before fear tightened its grip again. That voice, it was real, yet something was off. She stepped fully into the room, every sense screaming that something waited just outside her sight. Michael! Where are you? Behind you, he croaked, panic lacing his words. The warning sent chills sliding down her spine. Sarah spun, knife raised, and there it was again, a creature formed from the very darkness, its lips curling in a soulless grin. She stumbled back, nearly losing her footing, but held her ground, her heart hammering wildly. Oh, so eager to see? The creature hissed, mocking her earlier fear. You're almost there, sweet Sarah. Where's Michael? She shouted, desperation morphing to anger. Safe for now. The creature waved a hand, and shadows danced around it, morphing into familiar shapes, visions of those she'd lost. Familiar faces twisted in anguish, pleading with her, their eyes wide and terrified. No. I want to let you take him. The knife trembled in her grip, a fragile shield against the encroaching nightmare. Laughter swirled around her, a cacophony of tortured souls. But you've already lost him, don't you see? He is one of us now. That fate, becoming one of them, was unbearable. Panic edged on hopelessness, suffocating her. The darkness was caving in, pulsing with a life of its own. Michael! Fight it! She screamed, straining against the odds. With every ounce of will, she advanced, but the shadows coiled around her feet, dragging her back, whispering lies that tugged at her sanity. The creature watched, eyes alive with malice, eager to see her crumble. Suddenly, from the depths of the shadow, Michael's voice broke through with ferocity. Sarah! Don't listen. You have to trust yourself. They lie. A glimmer of clarity, a spark she had almost lost, fueled her next move. I will find you, she declared, forcing her mind to focus. But just as she turned her gaze back to the creature, it lunged forward, the air shifting, dark intentions pressing against her. The shadows behind her began to throb ominously, transforming into something far more terrible and real. Will you be brave enough to face the truth, or will you join the abyss? The creature taunted, inching closer. The room began to swirl around her as the darkness wrapped tighter. Sarah's breath quickened, but the screams in her mind pushed her onward. She was about to step into the unknown, the precipice of her choice. Two paths waited, but only one led to hope while the other swept her deeper into despair. Which would she choose? And behind her, an echo of Michael faded, almost a whisper as if warning her of something far worse to come. It's not just the darkness you have to face. The creature loomed closer, the air thickening with a palpable dread. It extended a hand, and Sarah felt the cold seep into her very bones. She blinked hard, fighting against the encroaching shadows that pulled at her vision. The world around her twisted, making it hard to tell where the room ended and the abyss began. Sarah Michael's appeal pierced the veil of darkness, distant yet somehow vivid. You have to confront them. His voice, strong despite the strain, anchored her momentarily, urging her to steel herself against the advancing horror. Taking a shaky breath, she turned back to the creature, its grin wider, a fanged maw of malice. What do you want from me? She demanded, clenching the knife until her knuckles turned white. What do I want? The creature chuckled, a sound like snapping bones. Only to reveal the truth. To show you the real Michael. The part he hides from, you know, she choked out, backing away, but the shadows shifted with her, pressing closer. Honesty? Its voice dripped with poison, and every instinct told her to flee. Yet here she was, trapped in a confrontation she never wanted, fighting against the very essence of despair. Michael is fighting a battle you know nothing about. The creature continued, spinning tales woven of lies and half-truths. You think he chose you? You think you're enough? Think again, sweet Sarah. The words cut deep, a serrated blade scraping against her heart. Her hands trembled, knife swaying uncertainly. Shut up. She screamed, but in the pit of her stomach, seeds of doubt began to sprout, flowers of despair blooming in an empty garden. Struggle all you want. The truth is, you will join us. Just like all the rest. The shadows encircled her, and visions of her past fears erupted, her parents' frightened faces, her friends trapped in a spinning void of darkness. They reached out, silent screams etched upon their agony, desperate for release. Michael. The sound came out as a whisper caught in her throat. Fight the dark, Michael's voice echoed again, louder this time, piercing through the despair. You can do this. With a surge of courage, Sarah lunged forward. Leave him alone. She yelled, the knife jabbing toward the creature. It recoiled, shrieking, the shadows retreating on the tide of her fervor. The creature's expression shifted, something akin to rage flickering in its inky eyes. You think you can break free? You've already lost, dear Sarah. Suddenly, the darkness twisted, rippling and forming nightmarish entities drawn from her worst fears and memories. The room roared with a symphony of tortured souls, their wailing echoes reverberating. She staggered back against the wall, heartbeat a frantic drum. No! She screamed, fury and terror intertwining. I will not surrender. Such fire, but also so foolish, the creature sneered, its form shifting as if it was made of the very shadows themselves. Come, let me show you just how wrong you are. The room transformed again, plunging her into a series of rapid images, her childhood home, dark hallways that echoed with threats, her own face twisted with grief. Each memory pierced her, a dagger in the heart, reminding her of all those she loved and lost. In those fleeting moments, the shadows closed in, feeding on her fears, suffocating her under their weight. It felt like drowning, the air thick with the essence of her despair. But then, a flame ignited within her. I choose to fight. She declared, her voice ringing out defiantly. The shadows froze, caught off guard, a sudden break in their relentless encroachment. The creature's smile dimmed, panic flashing across its dark features. You don't understand. I understand more than you think. Sarah shouted, charging forward and wielding the knife like a beacon of hope. As she struck into the heart of the shadows, a rift opened lightly, just enough to glimpse what lay beyond. Was it freedom? Or was it another lie? Before she could understand, the creature's scream encircled her, vibrating through her bones. Foolish girl. You will regret this choice. With a final thrust, the shadows reeled, her knife slicing through the fabric of dread. But the darkness shook violently, spilling tendrils across the ground, slashing at her ankles. Sarah, hold on. Michael's voice rang out again, stronger now, fighting against the tide. You're not alone. Then, in the chaos of their battle against the dark, something unexpected happened. A light flickered in the distance, and with it, a promise. Could it be salvation, or another trap? At that very moment, when hope sparked anew and shadows writhed in fury, she reached for the light, pulling away from the darkness. But would the light guide her to Michael, or was this just another trick of the twisted creature? As the clash of their will echoed, an alarming truth loomed, something she hadn't yet confronted. What else is waiting for us in this darkness? The question hung ominously in the air as the darkness swirled like a storm, ready to unleash its final wrath. The light flickered like a fragile candle in a tempest, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Heart pounding, Sarah felt a magnetic pull, drawing her toward it. Each step felt like wading through molasses, the air thick and suffocating. She glanced back at the creature, its form twisting as rage boiled beneath the surface. A demon denied its plaything. Sarah, don't. Michael's voice echoed anew, laced with desperation. Get away from it. But how could she? The light beckoned her, promising warmth, safety, and the possibility of escape. "Hold on, Michael!" she shouted. She had to reach the light, had to know if it would truly lead her back to him or to some unthinkable fate. With a surge of determination, she darted forward, the knife glinting in her grip. The shadows writhed and lunged, swarming at her like a living thing. Every inch felt like an eternity, but Sarah couldn't hesitate. She had to push through. Just as she neared the radiance, a dark tendril lashed out, wrapping around her wrist cold, suffocating. "You'll never escape!" the creature screeched, its voice a cacophony of torment. Panic clawed at her throat, she could feel her resolve starting to crack. "Let go!" she screamed, wrenching her arm in a desperate struggle. The shadows tightened their grip, and the world began to dim as they pulled her back into the abyss. The light wavered, flickering dangerously, as if sensing her faltering will. "Fight it, Sarah!" Michael's voice surged like a river through her panic. "Don't give in." Summoning every ounce of strength, she thrust the knife backward, piercing the shadowy tendril. It shrieked, releasing her in a wave of black vapor. With a gasp, she fell forward, tumbling into the light, eyes squinting against its blinding brilliance. But beyond the light's glow, something lurked. Figures shimmered dimly at the edges, faces she recognized twisted and gaunt, mirroring her greatest fears. "Save us, Sarah," they whispered, their voices a chorus of sorrow. "We need you now." She stumbled back, horrified. "What are you?" "Those you lost," the creature's voice sneered, now spectral and soft. "You want to reach them? I can grant you that wish if you're willing to pay the price." Her chest tightened, heart racing. "What price?" she retorted, anger cutting through her terror. If this was a ploy to trap her deeper into the darkness, she wouldn't allow it. "Your own spirit," it crooned, eyes glinting with cruel delight. "Join them, forever in their agony, or let them suffer endlessly without you. The choice is simple, dear Sarah." "I will not make that choice," she shouted, defiance rising within her. "I'm not afraid of you." In response, the walls pulsed, shadows bleeding into her reality, thick and oppressive. The air turned cold, and with it came the sinister realization that the light was dimming. Its glow faltered, swirling toward a near extinction. She was losing her chance to escape, to save Michael and herself. "Sarah, please." Michael's voice shattered reality, each syllable igniting a fire in her resolve. "You have to fight harder. We can escape this together." Looking back at the encroaching darkness, the faces of her loved ones worn with horror, she felt an overwhelming urge to save them. But could she risk losing herself completely? With a defiant roar, she forced herself to step backward toward the light. "I will never surrender," she declared, swinging the knife with renewed spirit, aimed directly at the heart of the creature's darkness. A shocking scream erupted as the blade cut through shadow. The light surged, engulfing the room, illuminating strange shapes that writhed with urgency. The creature howled, dissipating into a vortex of despair. But as the energy expanded, Sarah felt her body pull. Panic surged once more. Would the light consume her whole, or would it finally bring her freedom? In that moment, a ravenous whisper draped over her, curling around her like smoke. "You can't escape the truth, Sarah, you don't know what horrors await." Just as she began to comprehend the weight of the impending darkness, she realized she was once again at a crossroads. The light pulsed violently. Would she grasp it and forge ahead, or would the shadows pull her back into their sinister embrace? The last remnants of the creature's echo faded, and she was left gasping in the tumult of her choices, haunted by the question that lingered like a shadow at her back: what will you sacrifice to hold on to those you love? As the light flickered once more, something deep within her longed for answers, but would she be prepared for what lay beyond this battle? The light enveloped Sarah as she thrust herself into it, hope ricocheting inside her chest. Each pulse radiated warmth, a stark contrast to the chill of the shadows that had tormented her. The whispers faded, replaced by Michael's voice, clear and unwavering. Sarah! You're here. She blinked hard, adjusting to the brilliance that burst around her. There he was. Michael stood before her, weary but whole, the features of his face illuminated by a softness she had almost forgotten. Relief flowed through her, infectious and overwhelming. "Michael!" she cried out, arms opening wide. But before she could reach him fully, the light flickered, swirling ominously. Shadows danced at the edges, threatening to break through, clawing for their chance to reclaim their hold on her. "What's happening?" she gasped, backing away instinctively. "They don't want us to be together," he replied, tension lining his brow. "They'll twist everything you love if you don't resist." His words struck her, tiny arrows of urgency piercing through any remnants of doubt. She had come so far, fought so hard to lose everything to that darkness again. Holding her ground, she took a deep breath and nodded. "We can face this together." As she reached for Michael, a dark wave surged forward, and figures started to materialize from the shadows. Faces she recognized, friends, strangers, even fleeting memories, each twisted beyond recognition, mouths agape in silent screams. "Help us, save us," they begged, their voices a haunting chorus. "No!" Sarah's voice boomed, defiance coursing through her. "There's nothing left for you here." The air thickened as the shadows coiled tighter, trying to squeeze out every hint of hope. But Michael stepped forward, grabbing her hand. "Sarah, remember who you are. Remember the light inside you." His words ignited something deep within her, an ember flaring to vivid life. She focused on that light, not just the one surrounding them, but the flame of courage that had guided her through every trial. "I am not afraid of you," she shouted. The shadows hesitated, uncertainty creeping in like a whisper. They had never confronted her strength head-on, the resolve forged from pain and heartache. "Join us," they hissed, their tones oozing fear and treachery. "You will never escape." But she wouldn't back down. "I can't be your prisoner. I choose to save him. I choose to save myself." With that declaration, a shockwave rippled through the space, the light thrumming and swelling, seeming to resonate with her pain and strength. It burst forth, and with it, a radiant wave swept through, banishing the shadows farther back. "Together," Michael urged, their hands interlaced tightly. And together they surged toward the heart of the radiance, pushing against the shadows that grappled for their ankles like drowning sailors. The beam pulsed brighter, illuminating everything it touched, shriveling the darkness to mere wisps of smoke. The figures melted away, their haunting cries dissipating into the ether. For what felt like moments, there was only silence, a deep, profound stillness that engulfed them. Sarah exhaled, feeling the heaviness lift. "Did we do it?" Doubt flickered back in, but as she turned to Michael, the warmth of the light enveloped him completely. A smile broke across his face, and she understood they'd won their first battle. "I think we have," he said, laughter bubbling forth like a clear stream after torrential rain. "But we need to keep moving, keep facing what comes next." Her heart swelled with renewed purpose. They had fought through the darkest hells and now stood on the brink of whatever came next, but they were no longer alone. "Right," she nodded, bright and ready. "Let us go find the others." As they turned to move together, the light shimmered, glowing brighter with each determined step. For the first time in what felt like forever, the threat of darkness was behind them, giving way to a bright, hopeful future. As they advanced, shadows lingered, but they felt less intimidating now. They were no longer overwhelming. They were manageable. Together they could face anything. And as they pushed forward, the shadows receded, swallowed by the illuminating light. Here, in this moment, hope was not just a whisper but a roaring flame, and they would carry it with them into every challenge they faced. "Let us be brave," Sarah whispered, a fire kindling inside her. "Always," Michael replied, his grip firm around her hand as they forged ahead toward the horizon, ready for whatever lay before them. In that shared strength, they found the perfect balance, a reminder that in the battle against darkness, love and light would always prevail. They were free, and together, they would reclaim their home, brick by brick, heart by heart. The night might still hold secrets, but they were ready to face whatever lay beyond, knowing that the light of hope had carved a new path ahead. Now, face this call. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing finish. Your support means everything to us, and only true fans understand the importance of taking action.